My sister was struck down on her way home from school, sent flying by my husband's young assistant, who'd been driving drunk. The doctors fought for hours. They couldn't save her. The moment they pronounced her dead, I filed a lawsuit. I didn't hesitate for even a second. I swore I would make the driver pay for what she'd done. But on the morning of the trial, everything changed. My parents had been kidnapped. They were tied to rusted metal chairs inside an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. Thick ropes bound their wrists and ankles, and explosives had been strapped tightly around their bodies. A digital timer blinked down relentlessly, each passing second tightening the knot in my stomach. Standing in front of me was my husband, Brent Stevens. His expensive black suit looked completely out of place in the decaying warehouse, yet somehow he fit right into the cold atmosphere. His expression was emotionless, almost detached, as though the lives hanging in the balance meant nothing to him. His icy gaze settled on me. "If you don't withdraw the lawsuit," he said flatly, "I can't guarantee these bombs won't accidentally explode." He paused, his voice colder than the steel beams surrounding us. "Your sister is already dead. Why insist on ruining another young woman's future?" His lips curled into a faint, indifferent smile. "If your sister hadn't run into the road so suddenly, Tabitha never would have panicked and hit the accelerator instead of the brake. When you really think about it, your sister caused her own death." His words struck harder than any slap. So, that was what he believed. Brent thought the girl who had died was my biological sister. That misunderstanding was exactly why he had gone so far as to kidnap my parents and threaten their lives, all to protect the woman who had killed her. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "You want me to withdraw the charges?" I asked calmly. "Only the victim's immediate family can sign the release. I don't have the authority to do that." Everyone in Crestport City knew how obsessively Brent protected his younger sister. If she caught so much as a cold, he would summon specialists from across the country. If someone made her cry, he'd turn the entire city upside down until he found the person responsible. When she reached high school, terrified that some irresponsible boy might deceive her, he enrolled her in one of the nation's most prestigious all-girls academies. The annual tuition alone exceeded $10 million. He had always claimed no one in the world mattered more to him than his sister. The instant I refused, Brent's expression darkened. "Bella Pruitt." He spoke each word slowly, carrying the unmistakable weight of a warning. "I'm informing you, not negotiating. Tabitha only graduated from college this year. Are you really going to destroy the rest of her life over one accident?" He looked at me without the slightest hint of remorse. "Your sister would have gotten married someday anyway." "Fine. I'll increase the compensation. Consider it financial support for your parents." As he spoke, his gaze drifted toward the two elderly figures tied to the chairs. A dangerous smile flickered in his eyes. "But you'd better make your decision soon. I can't promise when these explosives might suddenly go off." The countdown continued. Beep, beep, beep. Every sound echoed through the empty warehouse like a death sentence. A chill spread from the soles of my feet to every corner of my body. For Tabitha, Brent was actually willing to sacrifice my parents. I looked at the flashing timer and felt as though an invisible hand had wrapped around my heart, squeezing until I could barely breathe. "Brent." My voice trembled with anger. "Have you completely lost your humanity? The person who died was our sister." His eyes instantly turned colder. "No." He corrected me without hesitation. "The one who died was your sister. Not mine." For a moment, the warehouse fell into complete silence. Then I laughed. A cold, hollow laugh that even I barely recognized. I had merely said our sister, yet he had rushed to distance himself from her, as though even sharing that connection disgusted him. If Brent knew the girl lying in the morgue was actually the little sister he'd spent his entire life protecting, would he still force me to sign that release? Would he still stand here threatening my parents? Years ago, after Brent turned 18, both of his parents died unexpectedly. His uncle, desperate to seize the family fortune, kidnapped Brent and his younger sister. To give her brother a chance to escape, the little girl stayed behind alone. She faced the kidnappers by herself. For 3 days and 3 nights, she endured unimaginable torture inside that filthy hideout. When Brent finally found her, she was barely alive. He held her in his arms, swearing through tears that no one would ever hurt her again. From that day forward, protecting his sister became the purpose of his life. Remembering that promise, I couldn't help letting out a weary sigh. "Brent." I looked directly into his eyes. "Do you even know what really happened? When Tabitha hit my sister, she was still breathing. She could have survived. But Tabitha was afraid she'd be held responsible for the medical bills and rehabilitation. I swallowed hard. So she shifted into reverse and deliberately ran over her a second time. She crushed her while she was still alive. The words echoed through the warehouse. Even my parents, bound to the chairs, shut their eyes in agony. But Brent's expression never changed. Not even for a second. Without a word, he tossed the family settlement agreement onto the dusty floor in front of me. The paper slid to my feet. He looked down at me as though discussing an insignificant business deal. That was nothing more than a final reflex before death. And besides, if she had survived in that condition, she would have suffered even more. He spoke with terrifying indifference. Tabitha simply ended her pain. He folded his arms. Your parents receive compensation. Your sister is free from suffering, and Tabitha gets to continue her life. That's the most practical outcome. I met the contempt in Brent's eyes, and something inside me sank to the deepest pit. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. Brent, I said quietly, did you know my sister only went out that day because she was buying a birthday cake for you? For a brief moment, silence filled the corridor. Brent looked down at me with nothing but icy disdain. She bought that cake because she wanted to win favor with the Stevens family. I never asked for it. I never wanted it. His voice was utterly emotionless. Now sign the papers and stop wasting my time. Before I could respond, his hand landed heavily on my shoulder. His grip tightened, forcing me to turn toward my parents. They were still bound to the chairs. Their faces were pale with terror, their bodies trembling beneath the explosives strapped tightly around them. The timer continued its relentless countdown. 3 minutes remained. My fingers curled into fists until my nails dug into my palms. Brent, I whispered through clenched teeth, if my parents hadn't exhausted every favor they had to help eliminate your uncles, do you really think you'd be sitting in the CEO's office at Stevens Group today? His gaze swept lazily over my parents. There wasn't a trace of gratitude in his expression. Only contempt. They only helped me because they wanted to keep you in the position of Mrs. Stevens. They weren't doing it for me. Every word struck like a hammer. For years, my family had treated him like one of their own. My grandfather had quietly cleared every obstacle from his path. My parents had spent countless sleepless nights helping him stabilize the company. Yet in Brent's eyes, all of it had been nothing more than calculated self-interest. The realization left my heart completely numb. After a long silence, I slowly unclenched my fists. Fine. I'll sign. The instant those words left my mouth, satisfaction finally appeared on Brent's face. He turned to one of his bodyguards. Untie them. The ropes were finally cut away. Before leaving, Brent shot me one final warning. I'll publish this settlement agreement online myself. So, don't even think about filing another lawsuit. A second later, my phone vibrated. $10 million. The transfer notification lit up the screen. Take it, Brent said indifferently. Compensation for your sister. And from now on, don't ever trouble Tabitha Henson again. I stared at the endless row of zeros for only a second before pressing the refund button. The money disappeared from my account as quickly as it had arrived. You can keep your blood money. I raised my eyes to meet his. Besides, I'm not the victim's family. The color drained from Brent's face. Bella. His voice dropped dangerously low. What does your sister's death have to do with me? And don't let me hear you insulting my sister again. If you do, I won't forgive you. Without another glance, he tucked the signed settlement agreement under his arm and walked away. He never looked back. Only after the warehouse doors slammed shut did the fear I'd been suppressing finally overwhelm me. My legs gave out. I rushed into my parents' arms, holding them as tightly as I could. My mother gently stroked my hair, her own eyes red with tears. Bella, you and your grandfather sacrificed so much to help Brent reach where he is today. She sighed painfully. Was any of it worth it? I slowly lifted my head. The warmth in my eyes had disappeared. Only icy determination remained. Mom, tell Grandpa to terminate every partnership with Stevens Group. I'm divorcing Brent. Brent had defeated his relatives and secured the position of CEO only because my grandfather had quietly supported him from behind the scenes. If he no longer appreciated that support, then someone else could have his throne. I personally took my parents to the hospital. Fortunately, aside from bruises, dehydration, and emotional shock, neither of them had suffered life-threatening injuries. The doctors admitted them for observation and recommended several days of rest. After finishing the admission paperwork, I turned around, only to see Brent walking toward me. Beside him was Tabitha Henson. She leaned weakly against his arm, her face pale and fragile, looking every bit the helpless victim. Tears shimmered in her eyes. Mr. Stevens. Ever since the accident, every time I close my eyes, I see blood everywhere. My doctor diagnosed me with severe depression. I need to be hospitalized. She lowered her head pitifully. But there aren't any rooms available. Brent's eyes immediately shifted toward the hospital room behind me. Without hesitation, he gave his order. Bella, tell your parents to give their room to Tabitha. For a moment, I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. I stared at him in disbelief. You had my parents kidnapped. They're covered in injuries. And now you want them to give up their hospital room. To the woman who murdered my sister? The instant those words left my mouth, a flash of ridicule crossed Tabitha's face before she quickly replaced it with an innocent expression. It was only an accident. She bit her lip, pretending to hold back tears. Besides, didn't your family already accept Mr. Stevens' compensation? She looked at me with deliberate innocence. Or was it not enough? Are you using your parents to squeeze even more money out of him? Her words spread through the hallway like wildfire. People nearby began whispering. Then the whispers became accusations. So they're the family from the news? I remember now. They kept saying they wanted justice. In the end, they just wanted money. They skipped the trial, accepted the settlement, and now they're back trying to extort more. What a greedy family. They sold their daughter's life for compensation. And now they're using their elderly parents for another payday. Shameless. Each cruel remark landed like another knife in my chest. The crowd looked at us with disgust. No one knew the truth. No one knew that the man standing beside Tabitha had threatened to blow my parents to pieces unless I signed those papers. And Brent, the man who had once sworn to protect me for the rest of our lives, simply stood there, watching silently while strangers trampled the dignity of the family that had sacrificed everything for him. Brent's gaze was as cold as ice as it settled on me. Your family already accepted the settlement, he said without a trace of emotion. So stop using your sister's death to gain sympathy. He pointed toward the hospital room. Clear the room for Tabitha. His expression grew even colder. And if your family hadn't kept hounding her, she never would have fallen into depression in the first place. You owe her this. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. Then I laughed. A cold, disbelieving laugh. The only person who owes anyone anything, I said, locking eyes with him, is Tabitha Henson. She's the one who got behind the wheel drunk. She's the one who killed an innocent girl. My family has never owed her a thing. My refusal only darkened Brent's expression. If 10 million wasn't enough, he said, I'll transfer another 10. Just give up the room. Tabitha smiled smugly beside him. 20 million is enough to buy your entire family's lives, Bella. You should learn when enough is enough. The moment those words left her mouth, Brent gave a slight nod. Several bodyguards stormed into the room. Before I could react, they yanked my parents out of their hospital beds. My mother's fore was ripped from her arm. My father nearly collapsed onto the floor. My heart lurched. I threw myself between them and the bodyguards, spreading my arms protectively. Brent. My voice shook with fury. They're your parents-in-law. Have you completely lost your conscience? His eyes remained indifferent. Bella. Everything you have came from me. Even this hospital room exists because people respect the Stevens family. His arrogance made my blood boil. I looked at him with open contempt. Brent. When was the last time you even spoke to your own sister? For the first time, his expression stiffened. Only for a heartbeat. Then the coldness returned. My sister? A faint sneer appeared on his lips. The girl who got hit by a car deserved her bad luck. My real sister is perfectly safe at her boarding school. So don't ever compare her to yours. I let out a quiet scoff. You'll find out soon enough who truly deserves what's coming. Over the following days, Brent hardly left the hospital. He devoted every waking moment to caring for Tabitha. Meanwhile, the hospital morgue repeatedly failed to reach Brent. Eventually, they contacted me instead. His sister's body had remained there as long as legally possible. Someone had to arrange the funeral. Remembering the sweet young girl who had once smiled at me and affectionately called me sister, I couldn't bear to leave her alone. So I handled everything myself. The funeral procession slowly made its way toward the Stevens family cemetery. White chrysanthemums lined the hearse. The mournful sound of funeral music drifted through the air. Just as we reached the cemetery entrance, two familiar figures appeared, Brent and Tabitha. The moment Tabitha noticed the coffin, she dramatically covered her mouth. Her face twisted with disgust. I was finally discharged today, and the first thing I see is a coffin? She frowned as if deeply offended. How unlucky. Besides, how can someone who died such a horrible death be buried in the Stevens family cemetery? Are you trying to make the Stevens family the laughingstock of Crestport City? Brent's face was frighteningly cold. Bella, what gives your sister the right to be buried with the Stevens family? Are you deliberately trying to taint our family cemetery? My eyes were already red from days of grief. I clenched my trembling fists. Tabitha Henson. I stared directly at her. You're a murderer. What right do you have to insult the dead? Aren't you afraid she'll come looking for you one night? The color immediately drained from Tabitha's face. She shivered dramatically before throwing herself into Brent's arms. Mr. Stevens, the moment I see that coffin, I remember the accident. My depression. Her voice trembled pitifully. It's getting worse again. If she's buried here, I'll never recover. Brent immediately wrapped an arm around her shoulders, comforting her with remarkable tenderness. Then he turned toward one of his bodyguards. His voice was colder than winter. A woman who died such an ugly death doesn't deserve a place in the Stevens family cemetery. Take the body away, cremate it, and scatter the ashes into the sea. Before I could react, several bodyguards rushed forward. One of them violently shoved me aside. My back slammed into the coffin with a painful thud. Pain shot through my entire body. Ignoring the agony, I staggered back to my feet and desperately threw myself in front of the coffin. Brent, you can't do this. You can't treat the dead this way. He looked down at me, as though I were nothing. You accepted compensation. That means your sister's life belongs to me now. His lips curled into a cruel smile. And I can do whatever I want with her body. Before the final word had even faded, a bodyguard drove a crowbar beneath the coffin lid. With a harsh crack, the lid was forced open. Another reached inside and roughly dragged the body out as if throwing away garbage. The instant Tabitha saw the corpse, she screamed. Pretending to stumble in fright, she crashed into the memorial lamp beside the coffin. The burning oil spilled across the white funeral cloth. Flames erupted instantly. Within seconds, the entire body was engulfed in fire. I stared in horror. No. I rushed forward instinctively, but several bodyguards restrained me. Tabitha covered her mouth, putting on an innocent expression. Mr. Stevens, I didn't mean to. The body scared me. That's why I bumped into the lamp. Brent gently rubbed her shoulder. It's not your fault. He glanced indifferently at the burning body. In fact, this saves us the trouble of taking it to the crematorium. The fire reflected in my tear-filled eyes. My entire body trembled with rage. I looked at Brent through the dancing flames. Brent. My voice was frighteningly calm. You'd better pray you never regret what you've done today. He laughed dismissively. Regret? Your sister's body burned. What could I possibly regret? Without another glance, he lifted Tabitha into his arms and walked away. As they stepped over the burning remains, neither of them looked back. I watched his retreating figure until it disappeared. My fists clenched so tightly my nails cut into my palms. If only he had looked one more time, just one more glance, he would have realized that the body burning before him wasn't mine to mourn. It was his own beloved sister. After arranging the remaining funeral matters, I returned home, utterly exhausted. The moment I opened the front door, I saw Tabitha nestled comfortably against Brent on the sofa. She was feeding him fruit with a sweet smile. The picture looked almost like a happy couple. Seeing me enter, Tabitha frowned in disgust. Bella, you've been around a corpse all day. Don't bring that bad luck into the house. Brent looked me over coldly. And don't ever think about burying your family in the Stevens cemetery again. Our family burial grounds aren't for just anyone. I silently watched the two of them. Then I walked forward. A stack of documents landed heavily on the coffee table. Brent, let's get divorced. He stared at the papers in disbelief. A second later, he shot to his feet and slammed both hands onto the table. Your sister died in a traffic accident. And now you're divorcing me over that? Yes. I met his eyes calmly. I'm divorcing you because my sister died. His face twisted with ridicule. Everything you have came from me. Once you leave the Stevens family, I'd like to see who in Crestport City would ever want damaged goods like you. I simply smiled. His arrogance would soon become his downfall. The day of the